Picture this scenario for a second.
Yeah.
You're sitting at your desk, just minding your own business, right?
Hmm.
And an email drops into your inbox.
Oh, no. I know exactly where this is going.
Yeah, it's from a coworker.
Mm.
And it is wildly passive-aggressive. I mean, it completely shifts the blame for a project entirely onto your shoulders.
Yeah.
And the worst
Oh,
part,
guess. They CC'd your boss.
they CC'd your boss. So your heart rate spikes immediately. And what is your first instinct? Like, if you're anything like most people, your fingers are already flying across the keyboard. You are drafting this fiery reply all.
Oh, absolutely. You're pulling up old emails, attaching receipts.
Right, you're preparing to absolutely dismantle this coworker in front of management. Because, honestly, in our modern culture, that is how we define strength.
Exactly. Strength is making noise.
Right. Strength is fighting back. If someone wrongs you, the strong thing to do is to clap back, get the last word, and reassert your dominance.
We've built an entire social ecosystem around that kind of reaction. I mean, every algorithm, every social media platform, every news cycle, they literally thrive on it.
Oh, totally.
The cultural consensus is just that if you're not reacting publicly, like if you aren't firing back when fired upon, you are somehow losing. You're weak.
But then you look at some of the oldest, most foundational stories of the human experience, and suddenly that modern definition of strength is flipped completely upside down.
It really is.
So today we're taking a deep dive into an ancient religious image, specifically the image of Mary standing at the foot of the cross.
Which is such a powerful image.
It is. But we're not just looking at this as like a piece of history or a theological lesson. We are putting this specific moment under a modern psychological and clinical lens.
And when you apply that clinical perspective, the narrative transforms completely. It
Yeah.
stops being simply a tragic story of a mother's grief. Instead, you discover this profound, almost radical blueprint for handling deep pain and, well, interpersonal toxicity in your own life.
And to guide this exploration, we're drawing from some truly fascinating sources today. The Foundation is a presentation by pastoral clinical counselor Father John Baptist, and it's titled Standing Under the Cross with Mary.
A fantastic piece of work.
It really is.
Mm.
We're also examining some related writings that lean heavily on the work of the renowned author and theologian Ronald Rolheiser.
Right.
Our mission on this deep dive is to offer you a completely different framework for resilience. We're moving away from that loud, clapping back kind of strength, and we're exploring a steady, sorrowful, and deeply faithful stillness.
And to understand the actual mechanics of this quiet strength, we have to start by completely redefining a word that most of us use all the time.
Okay.
Like, we think we know what it means, but we're actually missing its original depth entirely. And that word is ponder.
Okay, well, when I hear ponder, my mind immediately goes to low-stakes indecision, like, oh, I need to ponder my lunch options.
Right, yeah.
Or, on a slightly deeper level, I picture a philosopher pondering the meaning of the universe. It feels very, very intellectual.
Exactly. That is the classic Greek Aristotelian definition. When modern people hear the word ponder, we usually imagine someone sitting in a quiet university library.
Yeah.
Or maybe, sitting on a mountainside with their chin resting on their fists, like that famous Rodin statue, The Thinker.
Exactly. That's what I picture.
Right. And in that framework, pondering means to intensely reflect on a problem, to examine it from all various angles intellectually, completely detached from emotion.
Right.
Aristotle famously said, an unexamined life is not worth living, and we inherited that Greek concept of pondering.
It's a very cerebral activity. You're separating yourself from the situation to analyze it from a safe distance.
And this is key, the writers of the Gospels were not Greek philosophers, and this is a crucial linguistic puzzle.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, when the Gospel of Luke in chapter 2, verse 19 says that Mary pondered these things in her heart, the text uses the Greek word symbolou.
Symbolou.
Right. But the author of Luke was writing for an audience steeped in Hebrew tradition, just using Greek as the common language of the day.
Ah, you see.
So they were forced to use a Greek vessel to hold a much older, much heavier Hebrew thought.
I always find that kind of cultural translation fascinating. It's like trying to translate a concept like Schadenfreude or Higgs into English.
Exactly.
Like you can find a rough equivalent, but you lose the cultural weight of the word.
Yes, exactly that.
So if the author is using the Greek word symbolou, what is the actual Hebrew concept they're trying to communicate to the reader?
The Hebrew concept of pondering has nothing to do with sitting on a mountain thinking intellectual thoughts.
Okay.
To ponder, in this context, means to hold, to carry, and to transform tension so as not to give it back in kind.
Wait, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around that.
Yeah.
To hold and transform tension so as not to give it back?
Yes.
That is miles away from stroking your chin and thinking about a math problem.
It's a totally different universe. And I want to bring in Ronald Rolheiser here because his writings capture the absolute core of this linguistic shift.
Okay, what does he say?
He writes that we must hold this tension, and I'll quote him directly here, knowing that whatever energies we do not transform, we will transmit.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to play devil's advocate for a moment here because I can hear the modern pushback screaming in my ear.
Go for it.
In our world today, if you tell someone, hey, someone just hurled toxicity at you, and your job is to just quietly hold that tension and not give it back,
People will hate that.
they will.
Yeah.
That person is going to be viewed as a passive doormat. People say that it's the psychology of a victim.
Oh, absolutely.
You are essentially telling people to surrender to abuse and just take the hit. I mean, I need you to clarify this. How is this ancient Hebrew concept of pondering fundamentally different from just rolling over and letting people walk all over you?
That distinction is the linchpin of this entire deep dive. True pondering is not daydreaming, and it is absolutely not passive acceptance. It is not submissiveness. It is, arguably, the hardest active psychological work a human being can do.
Active work. How so?
Think about the physics of it. You are choosing to act as a spiritual and emotional shock absorber. You are actively refusing to let pain multiply.
Oh, a shock absorber. I like that.
Right. When that coworker sends you that passive-aggressive email, the natural, easy instinct is to transmit that hurt right back.
You feel pain, so you inflict pain.
Exactly. Pondering is the radical agency of stepping into the middle of that cycle and saying, the pain stops with me.
Wow.
I'm going to hold this toxic energy, and I'm not going to let it infect my boss, my team, or my family when I go home.
You know, it sounds like a psychological containment protocol.
Ooh, say more about that.
Like, I'm picturing a hazardous materials team securing a chemical leak. The hazmat team isn't ignoring the toxic spill, and they certainly aren't submitting to it.
Right, they're not just letting it wash over them.
Exactly. They're expending a massive amount of active energy to secure the perimeter so the poison doesn't spread into the groundwater.
That is a perfect analogy.
So pondering is the interior work of securing your own psychological perimeter.
You are containing the spill and recognizing the sheer amount of interior energy it takes to contain that kind of trauma perfectly explains Mary's physical posture during the crucifixion.
Right. So let's shift our focus from that internal reality to the external reality. Because the Gospel of John, chapter 19, verse 25, describes a very specific, deliberate physical action.
He does.
It says that Mary stood under the cross.
And that single verb holds immense clinical and theological weight.
Just the word stood.
Yes, because if you look at the crucifixion scene purely on the surface, Mary appears to be doing nothing at all. She is mute. She is seemingly passive.
Right.
She doesn't throw herself at the Roman guards to stop the execution. She doesn't scream at the crowds about the unfairness of the trial. And she doesn't loudly plead for Jesus' innocence.
So on a surface level reading, a modern observer might look at her and say, well, she's just a helpless bystander.
But we are applying the lens of Symblu.
Ah, right. The act of pondering.
If we know she is internally doing the heavy lifting of holding and transforming tension, her external posture takes on a whole new meaning.
It's not passivity at all.
She isn't a bystander. She is doing all that a human being can possibly do in that moment. She is standing in strength.
Okay, that makes sense.
To fully grasp the power of her standing, we have to contrast it with what she was not doing.
Which was?
She was not prostrating herself. She was not kneeling in the dirt.
Oh, that's a really good point.
In the cultural context of the ancient world, and honestly, even in modern clinical psychology, prostration represents weakness. It represents a total psychological collapse.
Right, it's giving up.
It is hysteria, resignation, and defeat. It is the physical posture of being helplessly distraught, paralyzed by grief, and reduced to nothing more than an object of sympathy.
Which, I mean, any parent listening to this would likely agree, would be a completely understandable and natural reaction to watching your child be unjustly executed.
Absolutely. The trauma is unimaginable. But in the narrative language of the Gospels, standing is deliberately contrasted with collapse. Standing is a position of profound agency. It is undeniable, grounded presence.
So she's holding her ground.
By standing, she is physically refusing to be swallowed by the despair that surrounds her.
You know, as you describe the difference between collapsing and screaming at the guards, it immediately brings to mind the psychological fight-or-flight response.
Oh, that's an interesting connection.
It maps onto this ancient text perfectly. Prostrating, like collapsing in a heap of hysteria, that is the flight response.
Yes, you're fleeing internally.
Right. You're psychologically fleeing from an unbearable reality by simply shutting down and hitting the ground.
And protesting.
Protesting, screaming at the Roman soldiers, trying to physically fight back, returning the violence of the execution with the violence of your own noise. That is the fight response.
Which, in the grand scheme of that event, would have just added more violence and chaos to an already violently chaotic situation.
Exactly. But what Mary is doing by standing offers you and me a powerful, radical third option.
It is not fight, and it is not flight.
No, it is a steady, rooted presence that protects your own dignity when the world is trying to strip it away.
Let's connect this back to your daily life, because Mary is echoing a universal human truth here, and it is a hard truth to accept.
What's that?
You cannot always stop the crucifixion. Sometimes in life, the darkness is simply going to have its hour.
Yeah.
A sudden tragedy happens. A devastating betrayal occurs in your marriage. A terrible medical diagnosis is handed to you. You cannot stop the event.
But you can choose your posture within it.
Yes, you can choose your posture.
I want to highlight that.
Yeah.
You cannot stop the event, but you can choose your posture.
Rollheiser points this out beautifully in his writings. He notes that you might not be able to stop the unfairness of a situation, but you have the power to stop some of the hatred, the bitterness, the jealousy, and the heartlessness that caused it
By standing.
by standing as that emotional shock absorber. But this brings us to a critical threshold in our deep dive.
Okay, where are we going next?
If standing is the physical container for this incredible strength, we have to look at the actual internal alchemy happening inside that container. Like, how, practically speaking, do you metabolize that trauma?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. Because saying transform negativity sounds incredibly inspiring, but actually doing it when you are in the middle of a personal nightmare.
When your nervous system is on fire.
Right. When your nervous system is on fire, it's a totally different reality. What is the actual mechanism for doing this?
Our sources break down the internal process Mary models into 3 distinct sequential steps.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Step 1, she refused. She actively refused to get back in kind.
Refused. Got it.
Step 2, she swallowed. She swallowed the bitterness and the negativity in silence.
Okay.
And step 3, she transformed. She transformed that negativity into moments of grace, forgiveness, and positivity. Refused, swallowed, transformed.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Uh-oh.
Because I have a massive problem with step 2. Swallowing bitterness sounds incredibly dangerous.
Okay, tell me why.
Modern psychology and therapy practically scream at us not to swallow our negative emotions. We are constantly told that if you swallow your anger or if you just swallow your trauma and keep quiet, it is going to manifest physically.
Right, as anxiety or
a panic disorder or depression. It will literally destroy you from the inside out.
yeah.
How does someone swallow bitterness without it poisoning them?
This is a brilliant pushback, and it is exactly where Father John Baptist's clinical expertise is so necessary.
Okay, because I'm skeptical.
Well, in his presentation, drawing from his book Brokenness to Wholeness, he doesn't sugarcoat the psychological toll this takes. He acknowledges as a clinician that standing under the cross is intensely, brutally difficult.
I mean, I would hope so.
It can leave us feeling completely fragmented, devastated, and abandoned. When you're standing there taking in all that toxicity, the human brain often turns inward.
And blames itself.
Exactly. You may assume you are unworthy, unlovable, and not enough.
See? That sounds exactly like the toxicity and self-destruction I'm talking about. That sounds like the definition of harmful repression.
It does sound like repression on the surface. But here is the vital clinical turning point. Swallowing in this framework does not mean repressing.
What's the difference?
Repression is taking your toxic waste, shoving it into a dark corner of your subconscious, and burying it in a shallow grave where you pretend it doesn't exist.
And pretending everything's fine.
Right. And you're right. Repressed trauma always leaks out eventually. But what Mary is doing and what Father Baptist is advocating for is not repressing. It is metabolizing.
Metabolizing.
Right.
Like the human digestive system.
Precisely. Father Baptist writes, "It is in embracing the pain that one can experience healing. You cannot heal from something you refuse to acknowledge.
So you have to actually feel it.
You have to take the pain in to process it." From his clinical perspective, human suffering is not the obstacle to the joy and peace we desire. Rather, the suffering actually becomes the means to it.
Wow.
God, or grace, is present in all of our human experiences, however deeply broken they might be.
So what does that metabolizing process actually look like in a practical sense?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to visualize.
Clinically speaking, swallowing the bitterness means accepting the stark reality of the pain. It means feeling the anger, feeling the unfairness, and letting it into your conscious system without immediately trying to numb it or project it onto someone else.
Sitting with it.
You sit with the uncomfortable feeling, you allow the grief to be fully felt so that it exhausts this toxic energy. That is the hard psychological and spiritual work of digesting it.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. You bring it into the light, you validate that you have been deeply hurt, but you actively choose not to let that hurt dictate your next action. So that what comes out the other side of your processing is grace, not a recycled version of the bitterness you were handed.
Let's use a mechanical analogy to lock this in. It sounds exactly like a high-grade water filtration system.
Oh, I like where this is going.
The dirty, toxic water goes in. It is literally swallowed by the filter. Now, if the filter just held onto that dirty water forever like repression, the pressure would build up and the machine would eventually explode.
Right.
But the filter doesn't just hold it, it metabolizes it. The internal mechanisms trap the heavy metals and the toxins, breaking them apart.
Yes.
And because the filter does that hard, invisible work, what flows out of the tap is clean, life-giving water.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. The filter doesn't pretend the water is already clean. It accepts the toxicity and does the grueling work of changing its composition.
I want to speak directly to you listening to this deep dive right now. Think about what an absolute superpower this is.
Truly a superpower.
We live in a culture built entirely on immediate reaction. If you go on social media, read a news article, or deal with office politics, the entire system is designed to make you transmit the anxiety or the anger they just fed you.
They hand you dirty water and they expect you to spit dirty water right back at someone else.
Exactly. They want you to transmit rather than transform.
Yeah.
But if you can master this psycho-spiritual tool, if you can choose to be the place where the negativity finally stops,
Then you win.
that makes you the most powerful person in the room. Choosing to stand, to take the hit, to feel the pain, metabolize it, and then intentionally respond with grace, that means you are no longer a victim of your environment. You are actively reshaping the environment for everyone around you.
That is the ultimate profound takeaway from Mary's posture at the cross. True pondering is not sitting around having deep thoughts. It is the active, grueling work of emotional and spiritual transformation.
Yes.
Standing under the overwhelming weight of your cross is a profound statement of human agency. It is a refusal to collapse into hysteria and a refusal to become the very monster that is hurting you.
Because healing doesn't come from avoiding the pain.
No. Healing doesn't come from avoiding the pain or firing it back at your enemies. Healing comes from metabolizing it so it doesn't get passed on to anyone else.
It is recognizing that brokenness isn't the end of the story, but rather the raw material for wholeness. Father Baptist actually includes some powerful reflection questions in his presentation that I want to pose directly to you right now.
These are so good.
Take a moment and think about what we've unpacked today. What touched your heart in this deep dive? When you look at the crosses in your own life right now, the unfair situations at work, the grief of losing a loved one, the tensions you are carrying in your relationships, do you sense a shift within yourself when you think about how you will stand under them from now on?
Those reflection questions are what take this from an analysis of an ancient historical scene and turn it into a living, breathing blueprint for your own psychological resilience today.
Because the simple reality is the cross is a universal human experience. You cannot avoid pain. But I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Think about this carefully.
Think about the invisible, almost mathematical chain reaction of transmitted pain that happens every single day in our society.
The ripple effect.
Right. A boss gets stressed about a deadline and yells at an employee. That employee doesn't metabolize the tension, so they carry it to a restaurant after work and snap at a waiter over a slightly delayed order.
And then the waiter.
The waiter absorbs the bitterness, doesn't process it, goes home, and yells at their kids for leaving toys on the floor. The pain just travels, like a virus looking for a new host.
The energy wasn't transformed at any point in that chain, so it was simply transmitted down the line.
So what if the next time you were handed a piece of that bitterness, the next time the world demands that you make noise or fight back or collapse into a victim mentality, What if you choose to be the one who finally stands?
So break the chain.
What if you are the one who acts as the filter, breaks the chain, holds the tension in the quiet, and transforms that dark energy into grace?